Well, this is Monday, and we're on our way to Donegal once again to meet Pat McArt, who says that the sun is shining in Donegal. Is it?
That was just actually it's gone behind a cloud as we speak, but all morning it's lovely. Actually, that's what I'm actually more concerned about, Jude, is there's a sort of forestry behind me, and I can hear the dogs barking non-stop, so there must be a fox running around. So
Uh,
that's concerning me more than where the sun's gone at the minute.
are they trained to bark only at foxes, or?
God knows, there's a squirrel running around out there as well. So
Uh-huh.
I'm living in the middle of a mini forest or something.
Well, I was going to say you're living very close to Mother Nature's bosom.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we're going to...
Actually, a couple of weeks back, a fox was walking across my front lawn.
Really?
And then, we have trees up and there's nuts on the trees. And I was just wondering where the nuts were all gone. Then we discovered a couple of squirrels.
To see a fox walk is a very interesting experience. It's like watching a cat. It's like watching a cat. It's as delicate.
Very, very clever animal. Very
relaxed as well. Yeah. Anyway, let's get down to business here, Pat. There's so many things you can pick for today because there's been a lot of news in terms of this election. But I thought one that was interesting for me was I actually put it up on my Facebook page, and it got mainly sort of people weighing in and saying, oh yeah, but there were at least one or two that are a bit iffy. This was the video I put up was somebody sent it to me, and it is of a bunch of young people in Chicago outside the Trump building, and they line up and they say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then they all moon, as they say. They show their bare backsides to the Trump Tower. And there's huge amount of laughter, and the camera tracks along the various bums. I got the sense that most people sort of thought that was fine, but some felt it was just a bit actually sinking to the level of Trump. What was your response? Have you seen that one, Pat?
Yeah, I have. You shared it, but I also saw it beforehand. Judy, you know something? I wouldn't get too excited about it. There's always that sort of no holier than thou attitude amongst some people, and they've got no sense of humor. Right. If the worst thing that anybody did was the moon Donald Trump, big deal. They've had 4 years of children being taken away from people's arms. There's been a journalist almost cut alive, and Donald Trump has turned his back and all that. The racism that he's inspired and all the you can keep going and going. I accept that maybe it's not the best way of doing things and might be not particularly good, and there's a wee bit of disrespect there. But here's the point, and I don't know who said it first, but there was somebody either was on Sky or CNN on Saturday night. I was watching, and one of the people came on said the reaction across the states, it was almost like somewhere like Belarus, that they had got rid of a dictator. They said the reaction was not the normal. Like, Barack Obama's one of the where away he works or whatever. Now, I don't know whether that was because it was a Saturday and people had time off, but there was an outbreak of spontaneous joy right across America, which is totally unusual. So maybe that's what those young people were sort of playing out, was that sort of sense of we've got rid of this idiot.
Yeah, I think you're right. I remember the pulling down of Saddam Hussein's statue.
Yeah, and Baghdad.
They do say, that was only, they managed to round up a few of the people of the country to pull it down, and then they filmed it so it looked as if this whole crowd of people were really having a good time. But actually, it wasn't such a spontaneous outburst that Saddam Hussein was defeated. Yeah. And actually, I think history went on to prove them right, because the country sort of fell apart then. But my first thought on it was, is my sense of humor too coarse? Because I didn't find anything. I just thought it was bloody funny. I also thought that they are young people. Every one of them was young, and I'm not talking about the fact that the young backside is better than the old backside. I'm saying when you're young, you want to be disrespectful. You want to really put it, so to speak, in your face, and to be as refined or as well-mannered or mature or so on, just wouldn't make sense, and to be asking people to pretend that they're middle-aged or old when they're not, in fact. And sometimes, if you think about it, I mean, Trump wasn't the most respectful person to many people in many countries.
You've just actually said something, Jude. I was going to say myself. Keep going.
I was going to say maybe sometimes you have to meet disrespect with disrespect to get the message across, because
Yeah.
sometimes to be conciliatory or to be pleasant and polite is interpreted as being weakness.
Yeah.
And I think we.
I have an American friend, and he says, I find it a bit rich now from coming from Trump supporters telling us to show a bit of respect, and that we're expected to go high, while they went low for 4 years.
Yeah.
And he said, this sort of thing that this disrespect the vote. He says Trump just totally ignored the views of. He says the more people who voted for against him than those who did. Like he lost the last election by 2 million, and the popular vote he's lost it by almost 5 this time. So Jude, I think that there's this sort of, I don't know what to call it, priggish nature in some people. Jude, the kids were having a bit of an outpouring about Trump losing the election. Big deal.
Yeah, I think behind it though, there's a very interesting thing, and that is to what extent do people change with age? Like when you're young, a thing like that, you wouldn't be going around saying tut tut. But sometimes people who would have a hell of a good time and might do it themselves, something like that, something slightly coarse. As they get older, they get more refined, and eventually they become quite conservative.
Jude, you ever notice what is the greatest Catholic is the convert. Some people when they give away something, and as they get older, then they become almost fanatical about the fact they lose all sense of perspective. And I think that's what happened. A lot of people who are sort of wild in their youth then become very conservative, and then they lost all sense of proportion. They become almost,
You see that very often with people with their children. They've led a wild youth themselves. Then they have children, and they're very strict parents. Maybe because they don't want their children to take the risks that they did. But the other thing I was thinking is this: the sense of what's right and acceptable in the public has changed with time. I mean, in the 19th century, for a woman to show her ankle, was considered quite daring. In the early 20th century, for a woman or anybody to say in public, to use the word bloody, was considered appalling. And now, even today, page 3 of the Sun is old-fashioned. So things change, and you might say standards are slipping. I don't think so. I think they just change.
Jude, you started off there and you said that in the 1900s, woman showing her ankle was considered risque, and then by the 1970s we had boobs on every page in some British newspapers, the tabloid newspapers. And I was watching a program there the other night. I think it's called "It Was All Right" in the 70s. It's about TVs back then, and the Miss World contest was on. And they were on their bikinis or swimsuit. I can't even remember. But basically, saying there was a woman come on afterwards. One of the contributors says, "You wouldn't get away with that now." So we go in a circle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Times change, people change. But I must say I enjoyed it. Actually, there was another one I found, and I'm dying to get my hands on it again. And it was a crowd of young people chanting. And since this is a respectable podcast, I can't
say what they're chanting.
What the chant was, but it was very clever, and it was very, I thought, very, very funny. If I discover it, I might put it up on my Facebook for a laugh to see how people respond to that. Okay, item 2, and we're going to try to keep this down to 15 minutes because our last podcast have been at least 35 minutes each. More, some cases. Anyway, so Leo Varadkar tomorrow is going to be facing a grilling, and in fact, a vote of confidence in the Dáil.
Yeah.
And I was looking at RTE's The Week in Politics yesterday, and the Sinn Féin person was saying, this was dragging what Leo had done by passing that information about the bargaining with the IMO, the doctors' union. That they were saying this is slipping back to the old days where there's one rule for the rich or the privileged, and another rule for the others. Now, I know we've sort of talked about this, but could you give me do you think this deserves Dáil time?
Jude, I know where the Shinners are coming at, but I'm not sure this is the issue. Really, I'm not sure. Right, here's the first thing. He shared something that was clearly marked confidential with a friend of his, Dr. Matthew O'Toole, of I can't remember the name of the rival organisation, but it wasn't the IMO. The IMO was the deal. Now, for a Taoiseach to share something that was clearly marked confidential is a big deal. because another the deal wasn't. Leo tried to suggest that everything was signed, sealed, and delivered. It wasn't. And the other part, if a senior civil servant had done what Leo done, he would have been fired on the spot. So so there's that. Now the other thing, what people like Pierce Doherty is basically saying, he disclosed a confidential document, and it's part of the old boy network. It's been going on for years, and so on. They're also pointing out that people like Michael Darcy and Brian Hayes, that these are guys who were former Fine Gael TDs who are now suddenly well-paid lobbyists for banking and high finance and all that. And they said, here's another example of the insider trading or inner circle looking after each other. And that is the real issue. That the fact that not so much the document that everybody accepts that Leo didn't get any personal gain from it, but it was looking after each other. Now, that is a very good point that is very difficult to argue with. But I'm not. If Leo had been found with his hands in the till, I think it would have been far more serious in the sense of people getting uptight about it. This one is a sort of it's a technical breach, if you know what I'm getting at. In the sense he shouldn't have done it, and all, but there was no personal gain, so it's very hard to sort of say like where's the beef.
Well, I think the people who are complaining about it, I think the Shinners and others, what they're aiming at is showing that Leo is more side to him than just what you see on looking at.
Yeah, I would accept that.
You know, that he comes across as very charming, intelligent, quick-witted sort of a guy.
Yeah.
But they're saying, listen, there's a bit of the old school here. This is this thing where we are a privileged people and we can deal with our mates and not let on to anybody. And they feel they've sort of caught him on that technicality. Yeah. So I suppose it comes down to the point where you say, well, it's very important to show up the technicalities as displaying an outer sign of a broader notion of what's right and what's wrong. Or if you say, look, this is a technicality, we've enough to worry about Brexit, COVID, things are falling apart really. So I don't know. I think the bottom line is Leo has been damaged by this. And it's hard to think of him the same way again.
Yeah, well, he admitted himself, Jude, of making errors of judgment, and he said it wasn't best practice. But Jude, this is not like feeding red meat to a bear. This is not the same thing. This is sort of, the great unwashed out there not getting terribly excited about this, and the sort of the political bubble everybody is, and sort of saying, and you're 100% right. The whole issue at play here is how Leo has had and Michael Martin have bashed the Shinners non-stop, over sometimes relatively minor matters. So I think this is payback time on their behalf. Hey, wait a minute, don't you take the moral high ground with us when we know what's going on here. I think that's what a lot of this is about. Fair, that's politics, but I don't think it's the big issue.
Yeah, I wonder I wonder what Phil Hogan thinks of it. I say
but Jude, by the way, there you made a very good point there. If I was, what do you call him, Cohen, and I was Derek Leary and Phil Hogan, by God, I would, Phil Hogan lost his job for going to a dinner. Derek Leary, the same. And they both said that they were given assurances everything was above board and so on. And they paid, Derek Leary lost a ministership and he lost whatever else he lost. Can't remember what else.
Deputy leader,
deputy leader. I knew there was another, but within about 48 hours.
Yeah.
Or less. Yeah. And here's Leo left sitting, not absolutely pays no price for this.
But I suppose the fact is that Leo's in a different position.
Absolutely.
Fianna Fáil know that if they were to sort of come down too strong against it, there'd be a terrible danger to the entire government.
But the point I'm making is the internal dynamics within Fianna Fáil at this stage must be. I would love to know what Jim O'Callaghan's going to be doing in the next 3 months.
Yeah, I'll bet. Okay, let's go to the third and final one. As I say, we're trying to keep these podcasts a little bit tighter, but it is this question of Joe Biden's victory and the extent to which he identifies with Ireland, Irish America, and how Irish America feels about him. Do you know Irish Americans in the States at all, Pat, or would you have connections there?
I wouldn't have a lot Jude, but my son made a good one yesterday. He says, "Now look up on social media. There's a great, and it's only 30 seconds. I think BBC might have used it last night. Joe, a couple of weeks back, Biden was walking along corridors, pursued by a big horde of media people, and this woman, I think it's a woman, anyway, said, Mr. Biden, BBC here, BBC. Any message for people back in Britain?" He just turned around and smiled. He went, "I'm Irish." In other words, he was making a good point, and he keeps quoting Seamus Heaney. He's been over here. He's actually made it very clear to the Westminster that anything that impacts on the Good Friday Agreement, it's going to get shut down by them. There's going to be no trade deal with America if anything happens to the Good Friday Agreement. So, look, from an Irish point of view, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, that's true. I was in contact with a guy I know, a Tyrone man actually, and I was talking about the fact that Trump had really been shot down, and we both have similar feelings on Trump, as would you, I'm sure. But he made the point that quite a few Irish Americans are strongly Trump supporters. And in fact, you get into an argument with them very, very quickly, and they feel very, very strongly about it. So they'd be part of that 70 million people that voted for Trump. And you ask yourself, well, and again, if you look at the people that Trump employed, look at the names: Sean Spicer, John Kelly, Ryan. I know he wasn't Ryan. Was it Pat Ryan, the guy's name, or what?
I'm not sure, Jim. But sure, look at these supporters on Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity. I can't even remember. There's more, and every bloody one of them has got an Irish name.
Bannon and Mulvaney. Mulvaney is over in the north now, but he was working in the White House. So there is an awful lot of Irish people involved in the thing. The question is, why? Why
Jude,
are so?
Jude, when I was in America, every second cop in New York had an Irish name. We Irish seem to have the Catholic Church. I keep putting a lot of it down. We are followers. The Catholic Church said follow these rules, and all Irish people went right in behind it. So we joined the cops. A lot of the jailers in New York, the prison officers, were also Irish, and so on. And Irish, once some of the biggest racists I ever met in America when I was living there for about 4 months in 1972 were Irish. They were seriously racist, and so on. And I don't know where the hell that comes from. And see this thing, you watch some of the stuff, the coverage of Trump. Like, I've got a lot of friends on social media, even some here in Ireland, and the right-wing Catholics are all nearly pro-Trump. He's strong on the abortion issue and all the rest of it. This is a man who has paid off porn stars, who has a con man. He can keep going. Yeah. And yet, here, Joe Biden apparently is a daily mask wearer, but he's the bad guy.
Yeah. But at the same time, Pat, I don't know if we quite have answered the question. I would agree with
you. I don't know if I answered it.
I'd agree with you on the right-wing Catholics thing. I think a lot of them would be behind him. And certainly people who would object to abortion or make it as a central tenet in their faith, that they would be supporters, I guess, of Trump because he's the only one around. Although, if you think about it here in the north, the only party really that's anti-abortion is DUP. But anyway, leave that aside. There's an awful lot of people, and say what you like about Sean Spicer or what you like about Steve Bannon. They're not stupid. They're not stupid. So I would.
Neither was Goebbels, Jude. Neither was Hitler. That doesn't mean to say,
But what about all the people I'm talking about? I'm saying they're not stupid. And likewise, all of that 70 million aren't stupid. Nor are they, racists. So what?
No, wait a minute, Jude. I'm not sure you can. No, Jude, hold on. If you support Donald Trump and what he's saying, you can't then absolve yourself. Now, there's parts of it I don't like, and Jude, when you give your vote to Donald Trump, the statements he's come out with, you can't turn around and say, I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump. You are. You voted for him.
But why do people vote for him then? Why did 70 million people turn out against all the odds and vote for him and push? I mean, people thought that the Democrats were going to vote more or less a walkover. They had nothing of the sort,
Jude, I can always say, and I'm not going to name the guy, but 2 or 3 years ago, I had 3 American friends over, and we went out for dinner one night, and one of them was a newspaper guy, and it's more than a few years ago because Obama was president at the time, And anyway, halfway during the conversation, this guy made up 2 or 3 seriously racist remarks about, Obama, and sorry, hateful remarks about Obama, and it's only came on me. He hated the fact that a black man was president of America, and it was pure racism. And when we got into, of course, we had a few drinks, we got into a bit of an argument about what exactly, Obama is weak and all the rest, and he's reaching out to the Muslim world and all this sort of stuff. And and I realized then, it got not the fact that Obama wanted to close Guantanamo Bay and all this sort of stuff, that he was undermining American, all this sort of, and you sort of go, these people really, the reaction, Trump was, I think, the reaction, a dying kick of old white America, the whole conservative America. A black guy got in here and they didn't like it.
I'm still very worried about the fact that half of America would be racist and misogynist and all the things that Trump himself is. There must be the left behind thing, where people were in the Rust Belt and so on, where their jobs are gone. You could sort of see that. But I mean, there was a lot of suburban women were voting for him. No, I
don't know, sir. I know, Jude. The one point you made there is the left behind. But I find that that's a very good excuse as well. A billionaire from New York who has done nothing, hasn't done one charitable deed or one philanthropic deed. Is anybody seriously saying he was going to go after he was going to bring back coal? And so what he did do was introduce a tax break that give somebody, on the lowest rung of the ladder, a couple of dollars extra a week, but give his friends at the top of the ladder millions a year. Big deal.
But Pat, you see, when you're really on your uppers and you feel that there's a bunch of privileged prats running the show,
exactly.
And some guy comes along and says, "Listen, I'm going to put my foot through these guys." You say, "Oh, good for you. I'm behind you," and you don't even stop very long to examine his credentials or to wonder what's he actually going to do for me beyond give these guys a kicking. And if he's able to do that, fine. Plus, this point I said before, never underestimated, Pat. We've talked about this before. People love a strong man.
Absolutely.
Or a strong person like Maggie Thatcher. That's why, they say, I can now offload stuff onto her. She's so strong. She's so capable. She can take anybody on. I'll vote for her. And Trump's the same thing. He doesn't give a damn about anybody. He'll say it. He'll call it as he sees it,
But it's across the board, Jude. At the minute, there's a guy in Poland doing the exact. Orban in Hungary's doing it. Bolsonaro in Brazil's doing it. Boris in London totally ignored Parliament, lied to the Queen. Wanted to prorogue Parliament to get his stuff through, and now it's all this sort of Sven Gellies in the background saying we can ignore democracy, forget about the norms and all the rest of it. Now that's very, very dangerous, because when you have no rules, we're going back to the old jungle. The strong man with the big knife is going to rule everything.
Yeah, but so somebody was saying, you see, that for example, you take Boris, who was modelling himself on, or maybe
Trump,
or maybe the other way around. It's hard to know. But that a lot of the air would have got out of Boris's balloon as a result of Joe Biden being elected. So, you have a change of the wind has shifted its pattern, its direction. Now, with that, I think it has put manners, softened the cough, so to speak, of Johnson. Well, will it likewise soften the cough of people that are leading in Hungary, the leaders in Poland, and that kind of thing?
Jude, I don't know. You actually hit on something there that I have seen. Like, Jude, history's been littered with Hitler, Franco, Mussolini. A strong man comes along in a time of trouble, or people are left behind after a recession, and I can sort this. Northern Ireland, easily. He just appealed to, a chemist. I don't care what they're saying. Hey, follow me. I'll look after you. And there's this sort of thing. A lot of the unionists in Northern Ireland felt very sort of abandoned and all. Paisley says, I don't care about what they're thinking out here. Like, you follow me and I'll look after you. That's what he did. And, that's very attractive.
Okay. One other thing, topic I'd like to talk about. We haven't agreed on this, but I'm going to bring it in anyway. Micheál Martin was up in Enniskillen at the laying of wreaths and the cenotaph yesterday. What are your feelings about that?
Jude, I think that sent out a very mixed message. This is a man who totally refuses to do anything about a border poll. In fact, he made it very clear during the life of his government. Not that he's done nothing to sort of bring a nationalist on board, nationalists in the north. He's talked about this shared Ireland and this 500 million, which, by the way, is kicking the can down the road. It's a very good idea. I'm not knocking it. In fact, it's a very good idea. But then he comes up and shows up and Enniskillen with this. Now, the optics of that are sort of saying, now, he's going to play it, I'm reaching out to unions, which, by the way, I'm totally of support of. But if you're sitting in a nationalist in West Belfast or the Bogside in Derry, you're taking a totally different meaning out of that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I have a couple of difficulties with it. One is that the whole Poppy affair, all those ceremonies in London and wherever, they seem to me to be honouring, celebrating almost the many people who died, celebrating warriors. So I actually think to an extent, it's a glorification of war. And it is a fact that the Poppy, we're told, is in memory of those British forces over the years. If you want to start with the First World War, and if you think about all the things that the British forces have done since the First World War, are we going to celebrate all those? I think not. Certainly in Ireland, there would be a lot of people.
I don't know whether you can call it a celebration or a remembrance. Now, the way I look at it, I have a great uncle died in First World War. In fact, we went to visit his grave in Belgium in 2018 and so on. And I think a lot of us, my son is married to a girl whose great-grandfather won the Victoria Cross, and he came back to Donegal and he was basically ignored for the rest of his life. And so I have very mixed feelings. I think those people, the ordinary working people from the Newcastle and Sunderland, the miners who went down and fought, now, I think they should be remembered. But if you're asking me, do I think I agree with the guys who took them to war, the Churchills and all those, the ruling classes, I have very mixed feelings about that. But I think those who died in 2 world wars, the decent people who fought for what they thought were the right things, I think they're entitled to be remembered.
Well, whatever about the Second World War, the First World War, I think the thing that should be remembered was that hundreds, millions of young men died, in my opinion, for nothing.
I agree.
Because,
totally.
they pretended that somehow the British Empire was at risk and so on.
The war to end wars.
How can people have ceremonies? And of course you lament the death of young men.
Yeah.
But not to attach blame or to say, what they should have a big slogan instead of we will remember. They should have a big slogan, never again. And they should play.
Well, Jude, the other side of the story is, you see, I find myself in a very difficult position here for a whole lot of reasons. But the other alternative is, I didn't fancy Adolf Hitler a terrible lot. So anybody that stopped Hitler, and anybody suggesting that Hitler would have stopped had he not been stopped, is, I think, living in cloud cuckoo land.
Well, you're probably right. Although I often think that, isn't it odd that it's always the good guys that win in history. History is written by the winners. But leave that aside. I would, I'd accept that. But you see, when you actually, and it is, if not glorified, then certainly given deep respect through the Poppy. And there's never any suggestion that the idea of training young people to kill other young people is a good idea. They simply don't regard it as anything but the best thing and the natural thing and the heroic things to do.
Jude, I think there's a
awful thing.
Aye, but I think Harry Patch, wasn't he the one of, he says, he said all wars was basically murder of young men. And he said he would tell the politicians the next time we're going to start a war, send your sons out to die first.
Aye, that's right. That's right. I would agree with that completely. It's been going on for too long, really. And year after year, I mean, they're beautiful ceremonies to observe. They're done with style and grace, and the British are very good at doing that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But they dodge a central fact, which is this is training young people, and it's saying resolve your problems by killing each other. And then
Jude, when you consider how many people died in 2 world wars, and the gas, and the extermination camps, and the concentration camps, and how the prisoners of war were treated, and the things, Jude, when I was reading even somewhere quite recently about the rats eating bodies, and the only thing
Okay.
that in the First World War, where some of the soldiers were dead, they put dead bodies in front of them to protect them from like Jesus, imagine how could you come back and live a normal life after that?
Yeah, no wonder they used to call it shell shock. It was just
Yeah,
people were traumatized.
yeah.
Okay, on that happy note,
I know, not happy note.
on that happy note, we will forge on. Yeah, well, of course, here's a blink of sunlight before we leave. There has been a vaccine discovered by the same people that discovered Viagra.
Aye.
While there's
I'll
life,
keep-
there's hope.
I'll keep a lot of things up.
Okay, bye.
Good luck, dude.
All the best.